So as I said before, Brexit, when it gets covered sort of internationally, is a lot more it's a lot more sort of fair play. And very often it comes down to the fact of, well, we can't even understand why you did this. And certainly in America, we've seen sort of, the fall of Donald Trump. And I don't think it's going to be sort of the end of sort of Trumpism, or at least, that type of movement. I think it will sort of, maybe morph into sort of something else. The potentially for Brexit to mold into something else, into a movement to rejoin the EU, is certainly potentially one, because there are a lot of media outlets that have picked up upon the fact that, hey, have you seen these numbers? How many people now sort of regret voting for Brexit, or Bregret, as it's becoming known in the international circles? I think that's quite an apt way to really put it. I think Bregret is certainly a way to do it. But go all the way back to just after the vote in 2016. We compared this a lot to the public approval of the Iraq War. Public approval rating for the Iraq War before we went into it was sky high. You should be able to go out into any street in any town or any city in the UK and find someone who is in favor of the Iraq War. Now, of course, if you went out to sort of do that similar thing, you won't be able to find a single person. And bear in mind, those numbers started shifting very, very quickly soon after the Iraq War hit. And what have we got with Brexit? The exact same thing. Why? Because what was sold at Brexit was never what we got at the finish line. This hardcore, hardline Brexit that we've got was certainly one that was not sold to us as being a hardline, hardcore Brexit. Remember, the Leave campaign and official position was we were going to stay in the single market and customs union. And of course, you know what's coming next. My favorite line by Daniel Hannan, the brain of Brexit, the man who, if you've got a question, then Dan's the man with your answer. And you know what it is by now, because I quote it often enough. No one is voting to leave the single market and customs union. Only a fool would leave the single market and customs union. And of course, here we are today. And it is very, very clear that Brexit was not looked at, certainly at the time in 2016, even though we were constantly warning about it. Hey, here are the economic consequences. They are going to be sort of quite severe. They were sort of played off as Project Fear. You can't really commit to that. And hence why there was such a pushback against experts. Of course, Michael Gove saying, people have had enough of experts because, well, they don't want people didn't want people listening to the experts, because if you listen to the expert opinion on Brexit, it was always, it really doesn't look good. And of course, remember, soon after Brexit, the House of Lords came out and said, well, sort of people felt like they were being controlled by the EU. The UK always had its own sovereignty, and it was really more just a feeling people had, not the actual truth. So again, so much for the sovereignty argument. And Brexit was sold in many various different ways to, well, various different people. Even at the 2016 referendum, the Leave campaign ran such a wide-ranging referendum. And as we always said, it was, Brexit was about trade until it wasn't about trade. Then it was about sovereignty. Then it was about something else. And it was about something else. And about something else. Brexit was just a piece of Play-Doh that could, at the time, be molded into whatever it wanted. The only problem was that once Brexit had then happened, the hardliners started to jump very quickly because they did not want anyone else molding potentially Brexit in what might be not their image. So they took control very quickly and kept things moving at fast and at a very, very quick pace. So today we're just going to go jumping quickly to see what the international press have had to say about Britain's new Brexit Bregret. So before we go jumping into that, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a link to my one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, there's the YouTube thank you link and all that good stuff as well down below. So let's jump into this from the London Economic with the title of International Press Documents Britain's Brexit Bregret. Media outlets from around the world have been documenting Britain's Brexit regret as economic headwinds hit our shores. CNBC reports that with evidence mounting for long-term harm being inflicted on the UK economy by Brexit, the government is coming under increased pressure to actually acknowledge the elephant in the room. The ODEC forecast on Tuesday that the UK will suffer a bigger economic contraction to the UK than in 2023 among the other G20 group of leading developed and developing countries, and 0.2% expansion is projected at the joint weakest alongside of Russia. So again, trade intensity is also plunging. Figures show that the trade percentage of GDP has fallen from around 36% in 2019 to around 55% in 2021, with domestic productivity growth also sluggish. Both the Bank of England and OBR estimate that the UK's potential output has fallen outright since the fourth quarter of 2019, and it will endure a very anemic growth through the next couple of years. And reporting on this economic downfall, the New York Times have said that 6.5 years after voting to leave the European Union, 3 years after the formal departure, and 2 years after signing a post-Brexit trade deal with Brussels, and 1 month after installing its fourth Prime Minister since the 2016 referendum, Britain is caught in, what else? Another debate over Brexit. Brexit may be in the history books, but Bregret is back in the air. And of course, quoting John Curtis, a polling expert for the professor of University of Strathclyde, they note that it will be very difficult to convince the people what a wonderful economic nirvana is coming around the corner because of Brexit. And with talk of rejoining the single market clearly off the table, Rishi Sunak is now in a quandary. The most obvious solution is politically unpalpable. His predecessors were able to promote Brexit as a blow for British sovereignty, or even curb against the uncontrolled immigration. Now it is being judged on its economic impact and been found sorely wanting. As Anne Merton, the professor of economic European politics at King's College, concluded, Brexit wasn't viewed through the lens of economics. Professor Merton said, it is viewed through the culture or values. Now, everything is economic, and while you can sell Brexit many ways, selling it as a boost to GDP is a stretch. So there you have it. And I think we've got very, very tough economic times ahead, as we've talked about long before. And I think it's going to be very, very hard for Sunak to try and sort of say, even other Brexiteers say that, Brexit was going to be a bonus because it was always sold that the second we left, poof, economic nirvana. It's all going to be wonderful. But even they, after the referendum, started having to climb that down, with Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, "Oh, it'll take 50 years to get a benefit of Brexit." That's not what the Leave campaign was saying. They were selling Brexit as being this economic nirvana, that once we left, everything would be wonderful. And of course, that was the true purpose of Liz Truss, to try and push through this crazy libertarian Singapore on the Thames style economy that the Brexiteers, and especially the hardcore Brexiteers, want. Now, with her gone and her thoroughly discredited, and very much most of the Brexiteer cause has now been very much discredited, what's next? Where do we go from here? Not even the Conservative Party has a clue. That is why Brexit is back in the news again, and it will always be back in the news again, because it will always, always, always be a problem until we rejoin the single market and customs union. And as we always said, eventually that would be our path back, because it has already been laid out for us. So, as always, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.